What the Actual Fork podcast is co-hosted by two intuitive eating registered dietitians, yours truly, Sammy Previtt, owner of Fine Food Freedom, and Jenna Warner, owner of Happy Strong Healthy.
We can't stand diet culture bullshit and love keeping it real. Our mission is for all humans to believe that they are made for so much more than chasing a smaller body. We are also here to share with you that food can be fun and pleasurable again.
Although we are medical professionals, we are human beings too. We are not afraid to share our deepest, darkest secrets and how many years of our lives were taken by diet culture.
We started this podcast so no human has to feel alone in their journey towards food freedom. So get comfy and join us for a casual convo where you can expect to laugh, cry, learn, and grow.
We are so grateful that you're here. So if you enjoyed this podcast and want to connect further, we invite you to follow along on Instagram at WhatTheActualForkPod and subscribe, rate, and review our podcast so we can continue to share this message with more and more people. Now, let's get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of What the Actual Fork podcast. I get to ask this today. Sam, how are you?
I know. I feel like I always just like throw that out there. I'm like, let me just hand it over to you, Jenna.
Well, I get to do that today. And I know you got some things to say, so I am pumped.
By the sound of my voice, you can probably tell that I'm not doing the best. I've already overshared on TikTok how I may have trusted a fart too soon. So let's just throw that out there.
And I didn't see that one.
Oh, you totally missed it. So we're talking all the sickness, but let's talk about Valentine's Day, right? Because it's Valentine's Day week, whether you're celebrating with a partner, with a loved one, with girlfriends, like whatever it is, like whatever kind of love in your life that you're celebrating, or anti-love, because I know some people do that. We thought that at our household, we're like, well, you know what? We have daycare. So we have full-time childcare during the day. So let's make this Valentine's Day one to remember and do a whole day date, like, because we have childcare. Well, funny thing about that is that...
Funny thing about plans.
Funny thing about that. So it all started a week from today for listeners. So last Friday, a week from today, Mama got raging pink eye in her left eye. And I was like, all right, fuck it. I'll throw some drops in. We'll be good. Okay. Well, Sunday I wake up and have raging pink eye in the other eye. Okay. So now I just look like a demon with two red eyes. And sorry, Luke, my husband doesn't listen, so who cares? He had the stomach bug last week, diarrhea, throwing up. Our daughter had it the week before. We thought I was in the clear. Well, no, I was not in the clear. Monday, so Valentine's Day was Tuesday this week. Monday night at 1 a.m., I wake up with a distended tummy and the rumbles that you just know, like
the
your
ones.
life, you know, your life is about to end. Like I was thinking of TikToks while I was praying to the porcelain god, like laying on the floor, that I was like, there's 2 times in my life that I've seen death. One was an unmedicated birth right before Sienna came out of me. And 2 is like that moment before you vomit where like you feel it coming. And I feel like we need to put a trigger warning on this episode because some people like hate talking about vomit. But like, oh my God, I was so sick. So my Valentine's Day, forgot to mention that on Monday, Sienna was sent home from daycare with a 102 fever. So she was home on Valentine's Day. So long story short, I spent Valentine's Day isolated in our guest room. I got an in-home IV loaded with Zofran, double pink eye, and now I have a cough and congestion and I'm somehow talking to you today.
I need our listeners to know just though how dedicated to the podcast you are, because while all of this is happening at like 2:40,
you were the only person I was texting while I was mid diarrhea and vomit.
I'm like getting these messages, like all of this like horrible stuff, but I'm gonna be on the podcast. I'm like, oh boy. And then there was another one at like 4:30.
It's like, never mind.
Like, so just so you know, like I'm not gonna be able to be on the podcast today. And I'm like, she's delirious. Like, what is happening?
Dude, it's so funny you said that because I had told Luke previously, like, when we were originally going out on this date because he went to bed. So he didn't know I was sick because we were sleeping in different beds because I had double pink eye. So I wasn't trying. So he didn't know I was sick. I was texting him updates throughout the night. So when he woke up for his 20-minute morning shit, he could read all my texts. So I was texting you and him, but he knew that I had a 9 a.m. meeting, which was going to be our podcast recording. So like after I somehow fell asleep by like 9 a.m. because I was up from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m., like just everything coming out. And he was like, I wonder if she like remembered to cancel her 9 a.m. because all he knew was that I had a 9 a.m. Like he didn't know what it was. And then I was laughing because I was like, no, I was like literally texting Jenna play-by-plays of like what was going on.
I swear to you, I woke up and I was like, oh my God.
Like anyone, and I feel like everyone is suffering from the norovirus right now. So the in-home nurse Bonnie, amazing. She was like, I've had like 20 patients like you over the past week. Like everyone is just dying. So I was like, okay, well, that makes me feel a little less alone, I guess. But so I know we've talked about daycare germs on here, but like, holy fucking shit, I really hope it's over.
Yeah, I hope so too, for your sake and for your family's sake.
But it's also like kind of hilarious. Like once you're like sitting upright and like I'm like kind of alive again, like I still feel like shit, but like I feel loads better than I did the past few days. Yeah, just crazy. So how was your Valentine's Day? Or maybe how was your weekend away? I would like to know about
we
that.
traveled. It's so funny. We traveled to Florida to visit my in-laws. Thursday.
Oh yeah, I workshopped this while I was puking. What you were supposed to talk about that.
Right. Yes, you did. She like gave me a task and I was like, this is a great idea. But we were away Thursday to Sunday. And, you know, the last 2 times we've traveled with Noah, with the toddler, he's now 2. He was like as good as expected, but like this time around, I really wasn't worried about it because I'm like, this kid fucking loves to watch TV now. He's going to sit with this iPad. It's only 2 hours. It's going to be amazing. Like I might even get to watch a movie. Like, wow, can't wait to travel. Did this kid watch 1 minute of TV on these flights? No, of course not. Don't like it. Not interested. Like would not watch a minute of the iPad. This was going down. Coming home, it was a lot easier of a flight, but I was like, holy shit. Like you cannot make this up. Like I literally packed so much less for him than I normally would because I was like, banking on the fact that like Blippi, Coco, and any truck video on fucking YouTube was going to save my life on this flight. Didn't happen. So, you know, needless to say, that was a very long day. And then my in-laws picked us up from the airport and they are 1 hour-ish from the airport. So like the drive after the flight, after the waiting is just like, it's tough, man. But I will say once we got there, everything was great. He did great. He recovered, etc. I was able to take like a little bit of time off of like the grind of social media while I was away. Like I disconnected quite a bit, which was amazing. But like, let me tell you, my social media views, which I know we talk about this a lot on TikTok specifically, I have 119,000 followers. I have videos right now with 150 views. I don't know what's happening and I'm about to quit.
So, something crazy is going on. If we reference our Justin Schumann episode, I know Justin put up a few videos about this, which I booked a one-on-one with him, by the way.
Oh, that's exciting.
I know. So I can't wait to update on that. But he did a video on that, how he put up a video where he saw it on his own FYP.
I see that all the time now.
With like 0 views and 1 save. But then when he goes to his page and clicks it, it was like completely different metrics. And he's like, what's right here? So just as always, my piece of advice is just don't even fucking look at the metrics. Just stop, because it's like, or just stop creating, one of the two.
I know, it's so wild. Some days I'm like, I don't know if I can do it anymore, but I am going to, because some of you are really the ride or dies and you're the ones that keep us going.
And that's why we're here.
And that's why we're here. And the content that is being put out on social that is going viral right now is so problematic that is really like what we talk about in this episode today.
Yes.
Which I'm super excited to share with you guys because there was, and I talk about this in the episode, but like, I don't even remember her name, Foodology or something, that posted the video about, and she mislabeled hydrogenated oils versus partially hydrogenated oils, which is completely different, and is giving out information on her massive platform, spoken in confidence and with authority. And people are now believing legitimate, like not just like misinformation, like a little bit, but like legitimately actually wrong facts about labeling and products in general and general chemistry. And it's really, really a scary time to be a consumer on social media, in my opinion.
Yes. And that's why it's important that we do keep showing up and why we bring on guests like we had today, right?
Yes.
All right.
Which
So
was
you kick
so
us off
fun.
because she was freaking amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
so excited for people to listen to this episode.
And like backstory, she even wrote this on here that she and I met when I was her preceptor for any of the RDs to be out there. In like 2014, when I was working as a retail dietitian in ShopRite of Hoboken, which is like so cool, like so full circle. And now she is doing so many cool things. So today we had Gabby Giuliano, who is a master's of science and dietitian. She is a certified intuitive eating registered dietitian and she did a non-traditional track to be a dietitian. After obtaining her bachelor's degree at Fairfield University, she completed her didactic program in dietetics at Montclair State and her dietetic internship and master's at the College of St. Elizabeth, which is also local to New Jersey.
Amazing. She began her career in clinical dietetics with a focus in oncology, which we didn't even get to talk about today, which is really, really freaking cool. And now works in regulatory affairs in the food industry. She is also the she's also the creator of Happy Eating RD, a blog where she discusses intuitive eating and also weaves in food marketing and diet culture while exploring relationships with food. So once we I think she pitched us an email and said, like, I work in regulatory affairs. I listen to your podcast. I need to come on. And we were like, fuck yeah, you do. So happy she came on.
And honest to God, like, you know what? Why don't we just give a couple snippets of what we're going to talk about? Like, she literally breaks down how labeling works, what is approved speak in labeling terms, like what is healthy versus what is natural, what are natural flavors. We talk about some viral TikTok trends and if they're safe or not. We talk about some apps that are out there and if they're safe or not. And we talk about like the marketing aspect of labeling as well, which is huge. And I think if that doesn't like pique your interest, I don't know what will, because that is like everything.
And what a cool like unicorn she is, where she's not only in regulatory affairs and has like this clinical brain as well, but is also an intuitive eating dietitian.
Yes.
So like this whole conversation today is rooted in this beautiful lens of not having guilt or shame or morality tied to food, which you don't often find when you're talking about a nutrition facts label or people that are talking about nutrition facts labels. So I'm so excited to share our conversation with Gabby.
Oh, me too. Welcome to another episode of the What the Actual Fork podcast. We are so excited. We have rescheduled this episode 14 times, and we were so determined to make it happen because the episode topic today is not only so relevant, but something I know so many of you have questions about. And we brought in a boss expert who also happens to be somebody I've known for like, did we say 10 years? 10 years.
Yeah.
Her name is Gabby, and I am so excited to have you here today, Gabby.
I am happy to be here.
Yay. So before we learn a little bit more about you in general and have you introduce yourself and say why you're going to be the expert of the topic we're talking about, we start every podcast episode with our What the Actual Fork moment of the week, the month, the day, the year. I could do 15 for today. So whatever speaks to you, whether it's something in your field specifically, or your area of the field, or just something that you've overheard in real life? Anything that made you stop in your tracks and say, what the actual fork as it relates to diet culture? We would love to hear.
Yeah, I had one, but then I had two now, and they'll be super quick. But I went into the office for the first time since 2020. And since then, I mean, a lot has happened. And I too just like have grown in my journey of just like learning more about intuitive eating and diet culture and all of that. And I saw a lot of my coworkers for the first time in like 3 years. And I was really taken aback by how many of them, like I was like, hi, how are you? How are things going? And like one of the first things out of their mouth was that I've gained weight, which is like not, that's not relevant. That's not relevant to what we do. And I just was just so much more aware of it. And I was just like, wow, like this came up more than one time from like very smart, educated folks that I work with. And I was just like, wow, it really is everywhere. It really is everywhere. So that would just like blew me yesterday when I was in the office. But from like an influencer piece, because of course, so fun on social media. I saw one, I think it was like some kind of fitness guy. I don't remember his handle. It's not important. But he was talking, like giving his advice. And one of the things he was like, all the workout stuff. And he was like, you must have your coffee black because anything else is a milkshake. And that one just like really stopped me because I felt a lot of empathy for him because I was like, I guess he doesn't know what a milkshake tastes like. And I felt also empathy for anyone who would see that and just kind of like follow along with it because like that's just crazy. Like, and then my regulator hat came on and I was like, well, what if you just put sugar in your coffee? That's not a milkshake. But is that going to be bad for you too? I don't know. So it was that was a big one. That was one of like the more flaggier ones I've seen lately.
I need you to send me that video because that's something I need to attack. First of all,
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm so sorry for the experience that you had, and thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, that is
Yeah.
a theme of so many episodes that we talk about, why it's never okay or acceptable to comment on other people's bodies. And I see
Like it's 2023. Like, can
Right.
people fucking get with it and not talk about bodies?
And like their own.
I'm like
Yeah.
so mad for you right now. Like I can't
I
imagine
know.
that.
I'm like, you don't need to apologize for your own body. Like, you don't need to do that. Like, you are fine the way that you are. And it's like just not an attribute that I consider you as my coworker. Like, that's not what I'm thinking about. That's not what anyone should be thinking about. So I was just, it like really just like brought me back to reality that like, wow, this is real. And we gotta take it one day at a time.
Having not been in an office setting in so long, like I forget how many toxic behaviors really do
Mhm.
exist.
Yeah.
Like now I'm
Yeah.
thinking back to every office I've ever been in, and like all people ever talked about was food in their bodies.
Right.
Like,
Which
ever.
makes sense because diet culture is everywhere. But like I'm still in my pajamas right now and like don't even know what it's like to step foot in an office. But like thank you so much for sharing that because I know that
Mhm.
that's not like an easy thing to share, but it's so needed and
Mhm.
for people to know that they're not alone. But it's never okay for someone to comment on your
Yeah.
body, whether it's weight gain, weight loss, doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
literally not okay. So thank you so much.
And to be very clear, creamer in coffee is necessary. Just in
Yeah,
case
what the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
For
was
my
curious.
joy. And this is not even sponsored, but Jenna, I know you also love the Chobani creamers.
Oh my God.
Like
Sponsor us.
they're so fucking delicious. Yeah, we need to get a Chobani sponsorship. So we are not in favor of that video either. But Gabby, we need to learn so much about you. And you threw out like if I put my regulatory hat on.
I know, that was really good.
I loved that. So please tell our listeners and tell me, because I know Jenna knows more about you than I do. So I would love to hear like what got you to where you are now and what do you do within the field of dietetics?
Sure. So I was a non-traditional track RD. I went back after I got my bachelor's to go into nutrition. I just found it really interesting. So I did that later on and became a clinical RD. I was working in hospitals, inpatient, outpatient, which was really, I appreciated the experience, but I always knew it was not like an end game for me. That's not what I wanted to go into dietetics to do. So in my internship, I kept hearing about this thing called regulatory affairs, which it was explained to me as, you do the food labels in the companies kind of thing. And I was like, that sounds interesting. I could get behind that. I like that, there's a lot of like rhyme and reason behind the fact panel. Like the things that are on your labels are for a very specific reason. And I just was very interested in that. So after a couple years, I had an opportunity to go into regulatory affairs. I actually networked through my Zog kickball team. Believe it or not, I found my job, which I will always credit Zog for that. So thank you. But yeah, so I started in 2016, and I've been at where I've been ever since, and it's been a wild ride. I joined the company at the time we were updating all the fact panels. Like a couple years ago, like it changed, the added sugars was added to the label. So we did that for the company, and now I've been there ever since. I mostly do conventional food, like the foods that you would find in a supermarket on the shelf. And I also do some products called medical foods that you need a specific prescription, and for a specific medical condition. For example, like do you remember like the protein supplements you would give in the hospital, like Prostat and things like that? Those kind of products, and like ketogenic formulas for folks who are actually have epilepsy, those kind of things as well, which has been really fun, especially with having the RD hat too.
That's so cool. And just to backtrack for anybody that doesn't know, because I do think we have a lot of Hobokeners that listen to this podcast, but Zog Sports that Gabby is talking about is the club teams in Hoboken for, I don't know, what would you would call it? Like young adults?
It's like intramural sports.
Yeah.
Yes.
For adults.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Luke played on their flag football team, my husband. I'm
I
pretty
Okay.
sure it was Zog.
When I
Yeah.
lived with like 12 people in a 4-bedroom apartment in Hoboken, we all played just to go to the happy hours
Oh yeah.
afterwards.
Oh yeah. Oh totally.
Oh, those
That
were
is-
such fun days.
I miss Hoboken so much.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, this is really just like there's so many things that come to my mind specifically, especially with the state of where social media is today. And the first thing that I would love to chat about, actually, you know what? Let's go in order. So when it comes to labeling a food, and there's things that you see on the front versus things that you see on the back, can you just start by kind of just explaining to our listeners like what is actually required to be on a package versus what people put on there for like attention, call outs, grabs, whatever, marketing, I guess we could say.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of things that are regulated, but a lot of it is I'm going to mostly focus from like a marketing claim perspective. So you can kind of then from there go into two categories. One is the nutrition fact panel, which is on the back, which has all the nutrition information, the ingredients, and then you could kind of label everything else as kind of like the marketing campaigns. A lot of times I affectionately call it like the marketing fluff. And all the claims that they're talking about, like the product is like XYZ for your health, or it's clean, or it's natural, like all those kind of things, like the benefits that it gives you, like probiotics and stuff like that. Those are more of like the claims. And again, some of it is fluff, but some of that is also regulated by the FDA, the way that the fact panel is, especially claims regarding your health, like tying something to heart health, or tying something to, another like calcium for bones and things like that. But those are things that are a little bit more, they're under a little more scrutiny before they get out on the shelf versus other things where like, this is the best product you're ever going to taste, and other things like that. So yeah, I would do those are the big two like buckets, I would say, when you're looking at a label.
I am really excited to ask this question because Jenna, you won't probably remember this, but you were the one who taught me this as my previous boss, when we worked for a supermarket chain. I remember we were like on a grocery store tour, or I was like shadowing Jenna and her clients, and she was like, did you know that the word natural has like no regulation behind it? And we were looking at peanut butters, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And like, I really didn't. And I was a registered dietitian. So can you please share with us the two big hitters, natural versus healthy? And like, or just seeing the words natural or healthy on a package. Do they have any regulation behind them? Like, what do they mean? Are products
Yeah.
allowed to use these words?
Yes. So we'll tackle natural first. So natural is a term that is not directly defined by the FDA, which means it has no like check marks that you have to have this, you have to have this, you have to have this, you have to have this. So it has a lot more, it's much more open to debate. That being said, the FDA does generally expect all claims to be what they call truthful and not misleading. So you have to, it has to be somewhat accurate to be on sale. And then another thing that to preface with as well is that unlike drugs, food, a lot of the claims like they can go into market without like the FDA is not like looking and approving a package before it gets onto the market. Unlike drugs, which of course are rigorously tested with through RCTs and things like that. So a lot of stuff like you can, because it's gray, the definition, a lot of things can fall under it if the company can back up what they're saying. But that being said, it's not like black and white where healthy is regulated by the FDA. It has a definition. It also has a new definition that just came out last year. So that's been really interesting to unpack. But to be healthy on a label, you need to meet that certain criteria. I believe it's that they've changed it. It's a lot more complicated than it used to be, where like certain food groups have like certain different levels of like fat and sodium and things like that. But for example, like sugar, for example, now has a level that you need to meet. I think it's like 2.5 grams. Well, for the sake of the argument, we'll say it's 2.5. And it's, it's something where it's like that's just one piece of what a product is. So the healthy definition when you're in the store, it's literally just means does it meet nutrition criteria? But as we know, health is so much more multifaceted than just what you eat. And I think that's one of the things, like as if you're practicing intuitive eating, if you're practicing just like more mindful shopping, is just to remember like the food labels that you see, like they don't know you. They don't know what you need. They're like social media, like all the influencers on social media that you see as well. It's like they don't know you. They don't know your body. They don't know what you need. So it's, keep that in mind as you shop. And, there's a lot more to health than just what's in the product.
That was such a good point.
Macronutrient wise. Yeah.
Yes, coming
No.
from 3 intuitive eating dietitians.
Yes,
Yeah,
that was
right.
such a good point because
Right.
whereas healthy has a definition per the FDA, just to like clarify what we are saying as dietitians on this podcast is that healthy for Sam might not be healthy for Jenna, right? Or for Gabby or for any of
Exactly.
our listeners. And so that makes it so challenging. I'm sure
Yeah.
your job has gotten even more challenging as every single influencer has gone on social media saying how bad, heavy air quotes, these are the top 5
Yeah.
worst foods I've ever found in the grocery store.
Why you
Yeah.
should never drink Diet Coke.
Or
Yeah.
how
All these
about
fucking
the
videos.
most recent one that I went off on with the girl who was literally wearing like no bra, basically no shirt too. Her nipples were covered. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No.
And she
I
was
think I
reading
do.
the
Yeah.
Jif peanut butter jar. And then
Yeah.
she actually got the organic chemistry wrong when she was discussing it.
Mhm.
Did you see that one? Where she
Yeah.
was like,
Mhm.
and I cannot believe that this is actually being sold in stores because it has hydrogenated oils in it. And
Right.
these are not allowed in foods. And every single dietitian, doctor, like health professional that stitched it was just like, wait, what?
Right.
Like,
I think I saw it from Food Science Babe, who I love.
love.
She is doing the work. I love her so much, the work that she does. And yeah, I saw that, she had a great, explaining the science, which is true. It's like a lot of these folks on social media, they're not actually sponsored by the products they're talking about, which I think is a big distinction, because if they were, a lot of times they would have to roll back that language automatically, because then you kind of get into like the industry side, of course, of like if a company is sponsoring, like they do need to be cognizant of what those folks they are paying are saying about their product. for the most part, because of course then, that can lead to, litigation and all sorts of headaches. But if they're not, of course they're going to say whatever they want to say. And a lot of times, you know, social media influencers and things like that can say those things because they're not under FDA jurisdiction, because they're not selling the product. So they can literally say whatever they want, and it gets out to into the media, and people are like, oh, this must be right. And it's like, no, it's not necessarily right, because it's just a lot of times their opinion. And going back to natural, because I know there was another big one too with natural flavors and like artificial flavors. So it's something that, like, while the term natural like has a like isn't really tightly defined, natural flavors and artificial flavors are defined, and they are very clear in the regs about what you can and cannot call a natural and artificial flavor. So if you ever see any content where it's like, this is naturally flavored, but it's not, and it's like, no, the company that put that out there needed to follow regulations. So it's, you're okay. You're okay. That's if you see anything about that, it's just no.
Thank you for sharing the distinction. Can you
Yeah,
tell us what is the difference between naturally flavored and artificially flavored, like from a definition
sure.
standpoint?
Yeah, so a natural flavor is something that has like it's made from naturally derived substances or like essences or things like that. Whereas an artificial flavor is more like, it's kind of like tweaked more, like it could be like more synthetic, like they're like doing things to like enhance flavor, like very specifically. Um, and it's not from like natural sources,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like it's more like synthetically made versus like a natural source. And then of course there's also like a caveat too of like, something can be a natural flavor on like the ingredient side of the deck. However, this is probably like a really granular example, but like let's say you have like a peach flavored like granola bar or something, and it says like peach, and then natural flavors on the back. However, if that flavor uses other essences that are not peach, like let's say it's like a peach and like blueberry essence. This is getting really technical. If it's
I
too much.
love it.
But if it's like peach and blueberry, and that blueberry is still like a natural essence, it's actually on the front of the pack should be artificially flavored, because it's more than just what's just peach on the in the flavor. So like there's a lot of nuance to flavor labeling.
Yes. I feel like there's
Hmm.
just so much nuance to labeling in general.
Yeah.
So
And I'm
interesting.
I'm so glad you pointed out in the beginning too that like natural on the front of a bag, like it's not like the FDA is sitting there waiting for these products to cross their desk so they can stamp them and approve them. Because like if you look at like a natural bag of Cheetos that literally just puts like a beige bag with like a leaf on it versus
Hmm.
like a regular bag of Cheetos, there's really not like a huge difference there. And please tell me if I'm wrong, but like how brands will just kind of change aesthetic in a way
Yeah.
to make something be
Oh
air
yeah.
quotes natural.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely part of like a rebranded or a refresh, and something that, they do, food companies have a lot of resources to do that market analysis and do all that kind of stuff, because they're just they're trying to make money. And you understand that, but it's also like you have to get to a point where you're also being responsible to your consumer as well. And as long as you're giving them accurate information, that's the goal of every food company should be attaining for. And they do. I'm not saying every company. I mean, the company I work for, we really, we strain to do that as well. And it's just something that you just have to be aware of, kind of like, again, with knowing yourself and knowing what you need and knowing what your body needs, knowing what you're looking at in the supermarket as well, and knowing like what's
Yeah.
going to satisfy you, and like not to be like swayed by a certain claim because you feel like you have to have this because it says XYZ on it, when you maybe really don't want it, or like you want a totally different product. And that's okay. It's like, again, taking that step back. Same like with what you do on social media. It's like, how is this affecting me?
Hmm.
Is this what I actually need?
Yeah. And educating yourself, which is exactly
Yeah.
why you're here. So people can have
Hmm.
this education to be like, oh, I don't have to choose a product because it says natural, because
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
really doing anything for me if that's not the one I
Hmm.
want.
Right. Right.
So,
Okay, I have to ask this, and I hope that you're ready for this. No, I'm just kidding. But more recently, I have gotten so many questions, and I have seen so many people, like people that shouldn't be posting this, and other people that like really shouldn't be posting this.
Mhm.
But a lot of people are now using an app that, and I'm pretty sure my least favorite influencer on TikTok also just recently made his own app, but I think previously he was also using this app.
Mhm.
But that basically, I think it's called the Yuka app. I'm not really sure, but the where it scans foods and even like products like body lotions and stuff like that, and it gives it like a quote unquote health score, and we'll say like
Mm.
basically this food's killing you, this food's great for you, and like the
Mm.
difference is the price point essentially
Mhm.
is like what I've deducted it down to.
Interesting.
But have you heard of this or seen it or like no bummer?
I
Okay.
haven't, but I know I've heard of like similar apps that in the past that have like, and I feel like there's a lot of like third party companies that like do this kind of stuff all the time. So I'm not surprised
Oh, it's
in the
horrible.
slightest.
I'm
Yeah.
almost positive. So my pal Bobby on social, I'm pretty positive because he has this like Bobby approved quote unquote like foods,
Mm,
and he goes into the store and basically like shits on everything. And now he has
mm,
like Bobby approved items. I'm pretty sure he has his own app too. And I'm just like so
mm.
curious what besides price point like makes them approved
Yeah.
items versus
Right.
not. It's
And
like
that's the question always. That's the question always. Like if I like this kind of app, like if I came across it, um, I would just kind of be like, what's the aim? Like, what is this app's goal? Like, where are they coming from? And what are they trying to either sell or anything? Like it's and always like being like, what's their angle? So then I can kind of just educate myself to be like, okay, this is how I'm going to respond to this information in front of me.
it's almost like you kind of have to follow like the trends of what's coming up. Like, what is the
Hmm.
common denominator of making something
Hmm.
good versus bad? So
Right.
interesting. Okay, so Sammy, sorry, I'm gonna skip to my next question then because we couldn't really get into that one. Food Science Babe also covered this once, like I want to say closer to probably 4 or 5 months ago now, when like
Hmm.
the pink sauce was like blowing up all over TikTok. I don't know if you remember that happening, but
Mm.
essentially what was happening is this woman out of like I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest was like making and selling this like fermented sauce like
Mm.
through an Etsy shop or something. And like basically what Food Science Babe was saying is like the reason that the FDA controls the food selling process is because of like the ability to prevent people from getting sick, and
Mhm.
how and why like you shouldn't be just like buying food off of someone's TikTok bio. Like, can you just talk
Yeah.
about like any like safety levels that you're aware of, like in the regulatory affairs, like state of packaging, et cetera, that like makes it so that the food that is on the shelf is quote unquote safe?
Yeah, no, 100%. That is another beautiful thing that is we love. We sometimes love regulations for this when they're very clear about food safety standards and quality standards of your food. Like a lot of times you have to the big manufacturing companies, they have to be inspected by the FDA, the USDA, depending on their ingredients. And they need to make sure that they're having good manufacturing practices to sell foods that are safe to eat. They have to have rigorous testing in place for those foods before they get out to market. And in terms of testing, I mean like safety testing in terms of that it's safe to sell. And, having a mom and pop shop kind of do their own thing like that, things can fall through the cracks that way because I mean if they're a registered facility that's wonderful, but if they're not, it's it gets really tough because there's a like processed foods get a bad rep, the term processed foods, but there's a lot of food processing that is really wonderful. I mean, milk pasteurization, that's a processed food if you really think about it, but it saves lives. It kills bacteria and makes the milk safe for longer shelf and distribution. So not all processed food is bad, and food processes and food processing can make food safe. So there's like that other side of it as well, because you hear how it's so demonized, but there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes for that consumers don't even see keeping their food safe. So
So
yeah.
beautifully said. I love these conversations so much. I was going to hit back with a snarky, but isn't dairy bad for you? But then I decided not to, because we're 3 intuitive eating dietitians that believe that all foods fit.
Right.
And so Jenna, I see you deleted this off our list, but I'm throwing it back on the table because I see this on labels a lot. Now, this might be more for supplements. So please tell me if like this isn't in your wheelhouse, but you'll see like proprietary blends on a lot of things. And maybe, I don't know if with like the medical foods you were speaking of, if protein powders fit into that, because I know that's like sold in pharmacy and supermarkets sometimes. But when a food or a food product has the word proprietary blend on it, can you explain to our listeners what that means?
Yeah, so that typically means, like, if I saw that claim, like my initial reaction to it would just be like, okay, this company has some kind of blend of whatever the ingredient, like proteins, for example, where they, it just means it's their unique, like to me, that's another way to say unique without saying that so directly. And I mean, it could mean like they maybe own it in some capacity as well. I mean, the proprietary is not like, again, I'm also not an attorney, so that patents and stuff is a whole other ball game. But it usually means it's like it's their stamp on whatever that ingredient is that they're selling to you. That's how I would read it.
Got it. Is there any caution that needs to be had with products that have proprietary blends?
From that, if like that claim in isolation, I would say no, not really, but definitely like look at the rest, especially when you're speaking about supplements, because supplements are regulated differently than food.
Yes.
They, can say a lot of fun things on a supplement, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's tested, doesn't mean that, they're doing routine testing, to even meet the levels that they're meeting. I've seen a lot of studies where they'll just pull supplements off the shelf and test them for the levels that are on the bottle. And a lot of time, you just got to be wary of who's producing what, because of course, they want to make money. That's why they're on the shelf. And it's, you just have to be careful about where it's coming from. I would say if you were looking for a supplement, like go to a reliable distributor. There's a logo. The logo's escaping me right now, but there's like a certain logo from like, I think it's like like a pharmacy logo that says it's like the most like rigorous testing or
is it
something
the NSF?
Yeah, I think it's NSF.
Yeah, we love NSF here. We talk about NSF all the time. So that's perfect. Yeah. Happy for us to hear.
But this is like, I know I've talked about this 1,000 times, but like Jenna in 2016, 17, who wanted to make her own protein powder, like in a factory, like somewhere overseas, when I was
probably in China
with someone online, like they were going to put proprietary blend on the label because it was going to be quote unquote my HSH powder.
It was unique.
Because it was yours. It was proprietary to Jenna.
So unique.
So it's like, yeah, we're going to use these things, but we're not going to tell anybody. So we're going to call it proprietary. That's how I always think about it. And I see a lot of companies like that are newer companies just getting out there that are using that. And I'm going to do like a deep dive and see if any of the NSF or Informed Sport supplements state that, but I don't think that they do.
I was just going to say, I don't think you see proprietary blends on products that are third party, like rigorous tested.
Typically, well, and if you did, it might be more in like a marketing message. However, you could trace then on the label, like they would probably then explain what's in the blend.
Got it.
Like it would probably be somewhere else where you're like, oh, okay, they're using this, 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 and this. And like in that case, proprietary might just be like the levels of what's in there, which they don't necessarily need to disclose. But whenever you're looking at any kind of label, the more transparent the label is, like the more they'll explain to you what they mean. That to me shows a manufacturer or a company that's like, okay, they did their due diligence and they want to make you as the consumer have an informed decision about what you're purchasing. And I keep that in the back of my head anytime I browse the supermarket.
Ugh, I love this. This conversation went by really fast. We hit all of our bullets. Sam,
just
do you have
rapid fire
I
questions
know.
at you.
We really
All
did.
good.
But this was so informative, and I think is going to ease so many people's nerves as to, back when we were in-store dietitians, I know I can speak for at least both of us, Sam, and hopefully Gabby, when you interned with me, you had the same experience. Like, one of my intentions, even being disordered at the time of like being an in-store dietitian, was to make food shopping like easier for people and more fun and enjoyable, and like encouraging people to browse and like look for new foods. But like, I can't even imagine that this is now 9 years later, right? Like, how stressful food shopping has become for some people when they base their decisions as to what to purchase based on what the latest like TikTok trend is, or like what people are saying is bad versus what's good. And like the sheer amount of different types of the exact same product that are out there now too has got to just make this just so much harder than it needs to be. And I know this conversation and this episode is going to help so many people. And so thank you so much for being here. Sam, before we do a goodbye, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would love to leave our listeners with one last question of, if they're listening to this episode, Gabby, and you want them to remember one thing about reading food labels that can really make them feel empowered and at peace with their food decisions, what would that be?
Yeah, it would be that, the food doesn't know you. You know what you need. And things like the fact panel they can be a great tool to help you figure out what you want, especially like when you get into a space of like gentle nutrition and you're like, okay, I need fiber in my diet. I want to get more fiber. How do I do that? Or I want to, have something that's more, I want something with more fat so I'm satisfied, things like that. Like the nutrition fact panel can be really helpful for that. But also don't like the claims, like don't let them own you. It's just food. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just food that's for sale in the supermarket. And it's it really can just be that if you get there.
Well, that was amazing. A beautiful send off. And tell all of our listeners, who I know will want to learn so much more from you, where they can find you, and any other details you want to share.
Yeah, sure. I recently started a blog because I just wanted to find a space to like talk a little bit more about intuitive eating, like diet culture, kind of like adjacent how it is about food marketing, like kind of putting that in there as well, and navigating that. And you can find that at happyeatingrd.com, and my Instagram is happyeatingrd as well. I, believe it or not, am not on TikTok for my mental space.
I was just about to say, your mental health is a hell of a lot better than ours.
But everything comes to Instagram anyway. So like I see it and I'm like, oh.
Jenna drags it by its horns.
Yeah.
Drags all the carnivores by their horns.
Yeah.
Brings them to Instagram.
So bad. Like so bad. But thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So much for being here today. This was so much fun. And it was so good to reconnect with you.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of What the Actual Fork Pod. We know there are a lot of pods out there, and we are so grateful that you are here listening with us.
So if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe, like, share with all of your friends and faves, and don't forget to rate and review and let us know what you want to hear more of. The more we hear from you, the more that we can make these episodes exactly what you want. We would also love to connect with you on Instagram at WhatTheActualForkPod.
We promise to continue to bring you the hottest topics, greatest guests, and the most fun you can possibly have fighting diet culture bullshit. We love you, we appreciate you, and we will see you next week for more fun.